Hey, somebody's got to put the old encyclopedias in alphabetical order. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to The Professional Noticer. Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth. With actual listeners in more than 100 countries, I am The Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. This week, the Professional Noticer is sponsored by the Veterans Administration, more specifically, Books for Veterans. The Veterans Administration has requested more than 10,000 of my books to use as gifts to veterans, their families, and VA employees. And so I'm donating a bunch of them, but here's how it's going to work. For every $10 you donate, a hardcover book will be sent to the Veterans Administration in Washington, D.C. in your name. You can add any multiples of $10 to the cart on andyandrews.com containing your order, or you can create a cart without an order that contains only your donation. You won't have to do anything else, but your name, business, or organization will be listed in a special section of andyandrews.com as thanks and recognition for your participation. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on The Professional Noticer. And I'm so excited today because I have a friend on. I have a buddy. When I get to have one of my longtime friends on, it's more fun. It's just because, you kind of forget you're doing a podcast and you start just like talking. And that's what we're going to do. But I kind of twisted this guy's arm because he's like probably way too popular to be on this. Let me just tell you, he's like a New York Times bestselling author of 6 books, right? He had a #1 Wall Street Journal bestseller, which I think was Finish. I'll ask him in a minute. Which Finish is a killer book. Inc. magazine, top 100 speakers, which I'm like in the top 5,000, I think. And I have liked this guy from the very moment we met. We have done some events together. We've hung out down here together, and he's just a favorite. Please welcome Jon Acuff. Hey, buddy.
Well, it's good to see you, Andy. I can't wait to be back in your neck of the woods. I love getting down to the beach, love the studio.
Maybe, is this Thanksgiving the one, maybe?
I think so. I think we do every other with my in-laws, and so I think we're going to be back at Orange Beach, and I love that area. I'm jealous every time I remember that there's people allowed to live there, and you figured it out.
And you got in-laws, so it's a different in-law every Thanksgiving. So you have one pair of in-laws that live in Orange Beach, Alabama, and one that probably live somewhere like in Ottawa, and it's
like Tulsa. Tulsa is the example I always use. Like when I have to have a random city, I say Tulsa. And I'm sure you do too. Like you develop these 37 is my random number. If I'm gonna say a random number, 37 is my go-to. I never say 48. I never say 52. Feel good about 37. So.
You know what mine is? What my random number? I have 2.
What is it?
One is 22 because it's my favorite number because it was my birthday number and it was the number of my most favorite football player of all time. Not my most favorite Alabama player, just favorite football player of all time. Number 22, Johnny Musso. In fact, Najee Harris, Tony Nathan, all those guys were only good because they wore Musso's number.
Okay.
But my other random number, probably more random, is 40. Because people say, hey, I've got a question. I'll go 40. They go, what? Well, 40. It answered a lot of questions in the Bible. 40 days, 40 nights, 40 days of fasting, 40. So 40.
I have that as an answer.
Yeah. Anyway, buddy, you got a new book, man. Soundtracks, The Surprising Solution to Overthinking. Now I'm holding this because I've been reading it, but we're going to put it up on the screen and make it look really big. When does this is out in like a month?
Yeah, it comes out April 6th. I'm super excited about it. It's book number 7, which puts me about, I think if I write 40 more books, I'm in the Andy Andrews category.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so but you're 7 probably, equal double my whatever I've written. But this one is a very interesting, I think, because I've always had, when I picked up your books, I've always thought right away, I've thought, and this is a good concept. This is a good concept. And then when I picked up soundtracks, and then I read the subtitle, The Surprising Solution to Overthinking, I probably overthought it there for a minute. I thought, now what does that mean? And then when I got into it, I thought, I do that, don't I? I do that. I overthink sometimes. So
Well,
tell
yeah,
me
you're not alone in that.
How did this come about?
Well, I try to, whenever I look for a book idea or I look for a new product I'm going to do or a new speech, I mean, there's so many parts of our lives that overlap. I like to communicate with humor. I learned a lot of that watching you do what you do. And so I look for three things. I look for a personal, passionate connection. So do I do it in my own life? The second thing I look for is a need. Are people that I'm trying to serve asking about that? Do I see a real need? And then I look at the marketplace and I say, okay, is it missing from the marketplace? Can I add something to the marketplace? So for me, I am an overthinker. I overthink situations. I have a lot of extra thoughts about something that should be simple. And sometimes that slows me down. It gets me paused. I define overthinking as when what you think gets in the way of what you want. And then I asked the PhD, Mike Peasley, who helps me research books, we asked 10,000 people, do you struggle with overthinking? 99.5% of them said yes. So anytime you as an author find a subject that 99.5% of people raise their hand for, you've got a need. And then in the marketplace, a lot of books about overthinking say, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. And my version of that is, why would I ever turn off this amazing thinking machine? What if I just fed it with stuff that pushed me forward, not pulled me back? Right. Like if I can overthink negative things, I can overthink positive things. Could I figure out how to switch that? And so I felt like, okay, I've got something that's kind of counterintuitive, that'll be really fun, that I can add to the conversation. So once I've got that, I feel like I've got the Venn diagram of, okay, I'm willing to spend multiple years researching and writing. And then this better than anybody, talking about it. I mean, the Noticer came out years and years and years ago, but there's still audiences that go, we want you to come talk to us about those principles. So once I've got those three things, I feel like there's a subject I can really sink my heart into.
I want to go back to what you said just a minute ago about, you're talking there, and I want to grab a pen and start taking notes because I love your three things, because I think so many entrepreneurs could use that. I mean, it's very good. But you mentioned about, why would I stop doing this thing? Why would I stop this engine that God put in my head? Why don't I just redirect? Because you can use a car to drive you down the highway, or you can use one to drive you off the cliff. And so, but I thought that was very interesting, especially in light of one of the chapters that I particularly enjoyed. Enjoyed the whole thing. I'm almost through. But I really enjoyed the chapter about Seth Godin and how Zig Ziglar really kind of saved his career. Zig didn't know Seth at the time, obviously. In your conversation with Tom, who is a mutual friend of ours, Zig's son. But tell a little bit about that. I think it's a fascinating story.
Yeah, I'm the same way as you, where when I find successful people, I'm curious, what do they do to build that success? What do they do to maintain that? What are the things that whether it's habits or steps or principles or mantras or whatever. And so I just started to notice that a lot of the people I really respect, a lot of the people that I really looked up to, when I would ask them, they would say, well, I've got these positive affirmations, or, I give myself a pep talk, or, I keep these ideas on a window by where I work to remind myself of the truth. And I started to see that a lot of the people that I looked up to were consistent in the way they talked to themselves. And they were consistent in the way they deliberately chose the thoughts they wanted to have about their day, about their next meeting, about a new opportunity. And so I started to research that. And then Seth Godin mentioned that in a number of podcasts about when he faced a series of rejections. And Seth Godin, if you're not familiar with him, is a marketing guru. He's somebody that I really respect. He's written a ton of big books, has a great business. I love the way he runs his life. And he said, when I went through this big, transition of failure, somebody said to him, well, how'd you get out of it? And he said, I didn't get out of it. I didn't talk myself out of it. I listened to Zig Ziglar, and he had hours and hours of Zig Ziglar tapes and listened to them so many times they wore out. And that really surprised me. And so then I went to Tom Ziglar, and I had the chance to meet Zig years ago. We had lunch, and he was just the sweetest, kindest person. And I started to kind of pepper Tom in a game I'd call Stump Zig. Like, well, what about, like, because I had this attitude of positive thinking is syrupy and silly and cheesy and negative is true. Like, that's what people always say. It's like, no, you got to be realistic, as if cynicism is real and positivity is fake. And so I just kept asking Tom questions, and he kept kind of unpacking these principles of, no, here's why my dad was positive. Here's what we did with that. He wasn't fake. He didn't pretend there wasn't a problem, because then you don't get to solve it. You got to admit there's a problem. It's not, if there's a hurricane heading to Orange Beach, you don't go, well, John, I'm a positive person, so I'm just going to choose to believe this hurricane will hit us. No, you get ready for it, and you still have a great attitude through it. And so that really inspired me to do what I did, which was create my own set of affirmations and then test them with a large audience. That's the part of the benefit of having a social media platform, is instead of just having an idea in my office, I'm able to go, okay, this helped me, but let's go see if it'll help somebody else. And so then I get to test it with thousands of people, and people go, yeah, this part was helpful. This part I changed. This part was actually discouraging. I go, oh, okay, well, let me, turn that dial down a little bit. And so that's where we came up with what I called the new Anthem, this short set of positive statements. And my hope is that people will kind of take that and remix it for themselves. I believe, I'm in my mid-40s, that a lot of advice is a la carte. You give somebody 10 things that work for you, and they take the 4 that work for them, and they add 3 others from somewhere else, and they write their own, and like they create this set. And so that's my hope, is that people go, wow, I love those statements. I'm going to use these 4 or these 8, but I'm going to add these 2 others that really fit my life, and I'm going to remix it. And so that's my goal with that section of the book.
When you said Seth went through a series of rejections, I was actually shocked. It didn't seem like a series. It seems like a seismic eruption of... Yeah. I mean, what was the number? Do you remember?
You said it was 900. I believe 900
it's like
was the number.
900. I mean, I was turned down 51 times for the traveler's gift. What a piker I am.
I know, gosh. Yeah, the help was turned down, I think, 67 times.
Really?
And that's what you learn. But the problem is, especially social media, we don't see that part.
Right.
So unless we're honest and go, yeah, this didn't work. I mean, I remember one of the things that happened to me, I did a book signing with John Maxwell once, which was, in hindsight, a mistake, because it's a guaranteed you're not going to sign any of your own book. So it's me next to John Maxwell. There's 150 people in line for him. They've got armfuls of product, wheelbarrows full of John Maxwell books. Nobody's at my line, completely empty. And somebody pats me on the back and goes, 10 years, buddy, 10 years. And I laughed at that because they were right. And so I just don't think we share enough of those moments. So when you say 51 times, that's encouraging, because sometimes we don't see that, and we hit rejection 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we think it's us, and we think we're the only ones. And that's part of the isolation of overthinking. That's what's funny. 99.5% of people do it, but a lot of people think they're the only one that does it. So my hope is that I think everybody does it to a degree. Some people do it more than others, but I think this book will have a lot of people going, it's like you read my diary. It's like you read what I've been thinking about. So that's my hope.
Yeah. Gone with the Wind 32 times.
Man, that's not even 51. So yeah
just so you know.
Amateurs.
Yeah. And let's see.
You had the whole book. Didn't you have a book once about rejections that people...
Yeah. Storms of Perfection. Because I thought, man, everybody talks about everybody's success, but what was it like when you were like me? I mean, I know you've done all this great stuff now, but what was it like when you were like me? We have all that stuff online now that people can read, because it was letters, Yep. I mean, I wanted to collect. I had the idea of 52, because I thought, letter a week or something. It's just a good number, random number. And so I said, I want to get 52 letters from people who either who they are or what they've done. And I want to know what was the biggest rejection or toughest time you had to go through before you became successful. And I wanted to get the letters on their letterhead in their words with their signature at the bottom. And I thought, great idea, right? And I was turned down maybe 100 times before I ever got the first letter. The first guy that wrote me the letter was Jack Hanna, and the zoo guy. And Jack's since become a friend. But I was turned down 400 times to get the 52 letters in that book. And obviously, when you're turned down 100 times at first, those are the 100 people you think are most likely to do it.
Yep.
And they didn't,
You started with low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. And it was crazy. I remember several of the things. One is I got like a 2-page. You remember Mark Spitz, the Olympic gold medalist? Yeah. I got a 2-page letter from Mark Spitz detailing exactly why he didn't have time to write me a letter. But just crazy things. But hey, so have you met Seth Godin? Have you met him?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really? I've never met him.
He's great. We did, we've met a couple times at a couple different events that we've done together. And then he's really good friends with one of my good friends, Brian Koppelman. And then he did a 2-day thing at his office on the future of publishing for about 10 people. And I applied for that and got to go do that. So I got to kind of see how his office worked and hear his thoughts. And so, he's been really generous to me over my career. And it's shown me a generosity that I hope that if there's another younger author that I can kind of do the same thing for.
Okay, well, I will be that another younger author, and you can tell me when we get off the air. You can tell me about the future of publishing. I would like to know.
I hope it's good.
So, what about Zig? I mean, before I get back to your book, I'm just curious. I'm curious about all things Jon Acuff, and so you had lunch or dinner with Zig.
Yeah, so with Zig and his
what
wife,
did he
Jean,
talk about?
Well, I mean, a lot of it, I was just at the beginning of my career. So I was learning how to be a speaker. I was learning how to be an author, and didn't know anything. Still don't know a lot of things, but certainly didn't know anything then. And I remember one of the things he said, if you can get home before midnight or 1 a.m. from an event, take that late flight, sleep in your own bed. He was like, those little things add up for your family over and over and over again. So he gave me just really practical, hey, here's how you travel advice. And then Tom built on that. Tom would say, I remember one of the things Tom said was, my dad would take an amazing speech and add a new part to it and continue to add. So it stayed amazing. It was the Zig principles, but it wasn't every time he did a new speech, because he knew he had some home runs and he wanted to test out the single in the middle of the home run. So I just got to get a lot of like practical, but in the same way you came and spoke to us about, hey, here's how I do events. Here's what I do. Here's how I prepare. Like if a water falls over, I have a preparation. Like early on said, hey, or here's how, if I have multiple products, here's how I share them from the stage. Here's what that looks like. I remember taking tons of notes on that. So that's what Zig was like. Zig to me was, here's practical, encouraging things about the road you're on and how to enjoy it and how to not get lost in it. How to make it about serving people versus building your own kingdom. Because I think it's easy for us to watch right now, people who get a little bit of popularity, a little bit of influence, and it eats them alive. And you go, how did that happen? And so I think Zig was giving me some feedback on, hey, here's how to handle the road ahead.
I want to get back to Zig in just a minute, but I do also want to ask somebody that is as visible as you. I hear a lot about you. You and I, we work with the same speakers bureau with Premier and Sean Hanks, Brian, all those guys, and so I hear a lot about you, and I hear a lot about you from clients. And so, how do you stay grounded? How do you stay grounded? Because this is an odd. I believe we live in an odd kind of existence, and I've seen, and you have seen people, because people come up to us a lot of times to go, is your orange juice okay? Is your orange juice all right? And I have seen some people turn into this kind of thing. It's like, as a matter of fact, my orange juice is not all right. Yeah. And you're like,
it could use some more pulp if you're asking. It doesn't have the level of pulp I desire.
So how do you stay grounded? What kind of thoughts do you put in your head? What anthem are you playing when you're hearing about how great you are?
Well, I mean, a guy named Jeff Schinenberger asked me that years ago, and he said, does your wife think you're impressive? And I was like, no. And he was like, good, keep it that way. So I think a lot of times having a spouse, whether you're a man or a woman, like having a spouse who encourages you and has a relationship where they can be fully them and tell you the truth is worth its weight in gold. Where I'm not, if my ego gets out of control, Jenny doesn't pour gas on that. If I go, that person is trying to take advantage of me, she doesn't go, they are, we do deserve that, and throw fuel on it. She goes, whoa, 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 let's talk about this. Like, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. So having a spouse who, what Andy Stanley would say is a full cup spouse, like she's a full cup. And so having her in my life, like that's been amazing over the last 20 years. So that's one way. The second way is I've got a lot of men in my life that can speak truth into it. So I have a Monday morning entrepreneurial prayer group that I'm connected with a bunch of other entrepreneurs. I have a Saturday morning running prayer group with guys in my church. So I have men that can speak into my life. And then one of the smartest things I ever heard, a friend of mine was leaving this big church to go be at another big church. And he asked his pastor for some advice on, how do I not go weird? How do I not get weird? And his pastor said, make a list of all the weird things you don't want to do, and then give it to a friend and say, if you see me doing these things, please come talk to me. And my friend had the insight to know, okay, I'm going to do that, but it's really hard for somebody to do that. It's almost impossible for somebody to do that intervention, even if you ask for it. So what he did is he wrote himself a letter and he handed it to his friend and said, if you see me doing any of these 30 things, 20 things, whatever the number was, please just hand me the letter and make me read it. I'll know what it is. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to come up with some dramatic, like heartfelt moment. Just hand me this letter. And so I've always loved that kind of approach of having people in my life that can say, hey, like, no, what is that? Like, why are you doing that? I just know, like, I want to live out of my talents to the fullest ability of them. But I also know that I'm not great at fame. Like, I'm not good at handling that. So I'm really trying to live out of a space where I let God determine the pace and the size. So if he wants to make it big, awesome. He's got the size, not me. If he wants to make it fast, awesome. He's got the pace, not me. And I have to hold to that constantly, because as somebody who likes to be high performing, I'll always be able to see more. And I'll always be able to see more and always be able to see more. But I don't want that. I want to be the guy that got the 5 talents and made the most of the 5 talents. Like, that's what's interesting. That dude didn't go, how come I didn't get 10? He doesn't say that. He goes, I put my 5 to work immediately. So I'm trying to go, whatever this little space I have, I'm going to be faithful to it. I'm going to have fun with it. But also, last thing I'd say, like a week ago, my wife said to me, in 3 years, you're going to wish you had a time machine that you could build to come back to the time we're living in right now. And you're going to miss it. You're working so much if you're not careful. I have 2 kids. One, in 3 years, they'll both be out of the house. That doesn't mean they won't come back. But like, we have a window of high school that I'm living in, and I can write 50 books in 3 years. I can go on 100 gigs in 3 years, but I got a window. And so that she has the courage to say that to me, and that we've worked on therapy on our relationship where there's a space to say that, that's a gift. And last thing. Okay. This one rocked me. Friend of mine, I missed out on a big opportunity, huge opportunity. And I was we were going on a walk. We walk once a week. And he said, how are you doing? I said, I'm actually feeling kind of sad about this. And I said, I missed this opportunity, and I was reminded of it. And I felt like afraid, and I felt like I'd blown it and it was never going to happen. And he asked me 2 questions. He said, if you'd gotten that opportunity, what would you have more of that you don't have right now? And I thought, oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. And then he said, if you'd gotten that opportunity, would you have gone deeper into your ego or deeper into your heart? And I knew the answer to that one immediately.
Yikes.
Like, I would have gone deeper into my ego. And he said, and then I told him that, and he said, well, that makes me sad, because I would have then missed this relationship because you wouldn't have cared about walks like this. And I would have missed out on this. And that was like, there were 2 things I learned there. One, if you'll be willing to share your feelings, people can give you gifts. I don't get that gift from him if I go, I'm good, dude. I got it all together. Everything's fine. I only get that when I go, yeah, I was scared, or I was afraid, or I was sad about this. And then having people in your life that'll say things like that is a treasure. And it takes time. It takes repetition. It takes, you got to put some skin in the game. So those are the ways for me that I just love things like that.
I had a friend tell me one time, I think Polly and I had been married maybe 2 years, because we were still living in the condo. And I came home from somewhere, and I just started getting on television a little bit. And so people were just starting to recognize me, right? And so now I understand that I'm one of these people that I can say it's been a long climb to the middle for me. I look at my life now and I go, people don't look at me and go, oh, it's Andy Andrews. People look at me and go, did I go to high school with you? I mean, that's the kind of thing. But then people were just beginning to recognize me. And I'd come through the Atlanta airport and somebody had wanted to take their picture with me. And I came home, with the story about it. I'm trying to go to the Atlanta. They want to take a picture of me. And they'd seen me on, and so my friend, a guy named Brent Burns, is a little bit older than I am, and Brent is a very, very funny human being. But he put an imprint in my head that day, 30 years ago, that I have never forgotten. He said, really? So they wanted to take their picture with you? And I said, yeah, they see me on so-and-so, and they want to take a picture of me. He said, wow, that's pretty incredible, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it's nice. And he said, hey, that's going to happen more and more to you, I think. I said, really? Yeah, probably, I guess, yeah. Mm-hmm. He said, when it happens to you, I want you to remember something. I said, okay, all right. He said, when people want to take their picture with you, just remember they do the same thing to the guy who wears the Donald Duck suit at Disney World.
Yeah.
And then Brent does this. He stands up and say, so every time you feel like you're a big deal, just do this. Just kind of, waggle your tail a little bit and just know, come on, Donald Duck.
I've
never forgotten that.
You're telling that story like it happened yesterday. That's funny.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
I mean, it's one of those things. So it's a funny thing because I appreciate it. Like when people, and I know I don't get recognized a ton. I mean, like I've pumped gas for the last 50 times unbothered. I'm never, like no one's at the gas station like, oh my gosh, Jon Acuff, just like us, he gets gas. And so, but like when somebody does it and they go, hey, I don't mean to bother you. It's at the level where people come up and give you compliments. Like, how is that bad? Like at our level of success, somebody sees you and goes, I loved your book. Wow. Like on a Tuesday at 4 p.m. at the grocery store, somebody gave me a compliment. How can I take that and be like, oh, it's such a bother. Like that's a really sweet kind of thing to do. And I receive it as a gift. But again, the big thing is I want my work to be my work and my identity to be my identity. And I only, like, if I get those two wrapped up, and it's hard because our job, you have to put so much of your heart into it. So when somebody goes like, don't take it personally. Well, I spent a year with this story.
I'm sorry, but I do.
Yeah. And like, it's my picture on the back of it. So
don't take it personally, but your child is ugly, man. It's just,
exactly. Like the human you made is weird. You're like, I won't take that personally. Thanks for saying that. So, but I think that's something we all figure out is like, how do I do the best work I can do? But my identity, like a phrase I say, phrases, one of my phrases is, you woke up with worth. I woke up with worth. Like, it's not something for me to gain today. It's not something for me to, like, I woke up with it. I had it to start the day. Yeah. I'm not going to try to earn it with something I'm doing.
Right. I was going to say that a minute ago, that I love the Ziglar family. It's sad to me that Zig and Gene are both gone, but Tom and Julie and Cindy, I still keep up with them, and I love them to death. But I can totally hear, I had some meals with them too, and I can totally hear those things. Oh, yeah. And, do you know, and one of them, one I really remember? Zig and Gene were in an assisted living place in Dallas. Mm-hmm. And I had lunch with them, and Zig told me this, and I don't know why, amid all the tapes and all the things I've heard from him and the things that are still ringing in my head and the books I read, I don't know why this one still stays in my mind, but he was sitting like right here. I'm sitting right here. And he looked at me and he said, two things are very important to me. I think that a man should always carry a comb because I think he should always look his best. And I think he should always carry a pen so that if he has something he wants to write down, he is ready to do so. I don't know why I always remember that.
A comb.
A comb, yeah. So the man would look his best. and a pen, so that if you think of something, you can write it down. And now to this day, when I think of Zig, I think, that's two things. But that was just, that's
so
his.
fun.
So John, where, with all your research in soundtracks, the surprising solution to overthinking, all the research you did, all these people, was there something that surprised you? There's something you went, now come on, wait a minute. I got to look at that again. Seriously?
Well, I mean, I think the thing that surprises me is how much time and energy people spend in beating themselves up. Like how little they cut slack for themselves. So I'll meet people that will say, John, I'm not doing enough on my goal or my side hustle or whatever. And I'll say, well, tell me about your family. And they'll say, I've got 2 twin 2-year-olds, a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. We just moved across the country last week, and we're adopting. And I'll go, what? Like, you can't, like, you shouldn't be hustling 40 different ways right now. Like, you've got, like, you're raising humans. Like, what if that's enough for right now? So I just think that over and over, I see people that give themselves impossible expectations to meet, impossibly short time frames, think they're the only one, especially high performing people. I think high performing people are really often unkind to themselves, and just learning, okay, a little bit of kindness goes a long way. A little bit of, I'm going to take a breath on this. I'm going to be deliberate about this. That was the first surprise. The second surprise were how few people actually picked their thoughts out deliberately. Like even my most type A people that I researched, who would lay out their clothes the night before to go to the gym because they knew it would increase their chances, never said, I got a big meeting tomorrow. I'm going to listen to these 3 thoughts. I've got a big client coming up and I'm tempted to overthink these 4 things. I'm going to go in with these 4 thoughts on loop so that I have more confidence.
Right.
Like people are so deliberate in so many parts of their lives.
Choose your clothes, choose your food. Don't choose your thinking.
But they don't choose the thing, like they don't choose the thing they spend the most time with, which is their thoughts. So that was really surprising how few people, I would say to them, hey, what do you overthink? And they'd have 15 negative things. And I'd go, what do you want to overthink? Or like, what's a positive thing you want to think about? And they couldn't come up with one. So helping people go, hey, you can replace those, right? Like, if you told yourself forever, I can't write a book, I can't write a book, I can't write a book. What if we changed it to, I can write a book, I have to write a book, I'm the best one to write a book. Like, what if we change it to that? Could that turn into action, turn into results? That was the big surprise to me, is how few people even understood they had the permission or the power to change the way they think.
This, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but, if you think it might not be appropriate and your child's listening, just listen to this part later. But I had an athlete that I worked with one time, and he seemed sad or mad all the time. Mm-hmm. And, I felt like, and it turned out this was true, but I felt like a lot of his performance was due to his thoughts about himself and how he had kind of turned into this negative person, because I did a ton of research on him, watched a lot of film on him, and he wasn't always that way. But now every time I walk in the room with him, and so I asked him one day, I said, do you kind of like say stuff to yourself? Do you give yourself kind of, talks, or, do you try to instruct yourself? I was kind of, I didn't want to say, what is the most prevailing thought pattern in your life? Because I didn't want him to say, I am a winner, whatever. I just wanted to hear, what is this guy really? And so I said, things that you say, you kind of, that you don't really mean to, but you kind of hear yourself say this to yourself. And he said, yeah, I do. And I said, like, what would be the number one? He said, wake up, dumbass. Mm-hmm. I said, really? He said, yeah, And I knew right then, I said, boy, that's pretty destructive.
Yeah.
You're telling yourself you're such an idiot. You're such an idiot. You can't even do anything right, and but I wish I'd had your book then. I mean,
well, and the problem is if you say that to yourself all day, there's a number of consequences. One, you add that to any time somebody gives you feedback. So if you create wake up, you're an idiot, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. When somebody gives you feedback, you add you're an idiot onto it and you overreact. Like you come off as, belligerent. Like it's hard for you to give someone else grace because you've told yourself all day you're an idiot. So when somebody else makes a mistake, you're quick to say you're an idiot too.
Right.
And so, yeah, I see that over and over and over again. And I think the problem is sometimes in situations like that, we think it's part of our edge and we're afraid to lose our edge. So there's times like my version of that is I had a crisis where I had to save the day. Something terrible blew up. I had to save the day. And I learned I can work well in a crisis. And then eventually that turned into I need a crisis to work well. And suddenly, in the absence of a crisis, I'm creating the crisis. So when there's not one, I have to it's like if you work great in fires, you end up becoming an arsonist. And so you have to say, okay, I need a new fuel. I can't function on crisis. I can't manufacture it. It makes me miserable to be around. How do I find joy or how do I find a different form of motivation? But I think a lot of times, because they've achieved something using that, they're afraid to let go of that because they're afraid they're going to lose their edge. Right. I think that's a really interesting principle.
Man, that's great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the book is Soundtracks, The Surprising Solution to Overthinking. And may I also say, Jon, this is one of the best feeling books.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, I mean, it has
I said that. I was like, I want it to be baby smooth.
Yeah,
that's
rich
the phrase.
Corinthian leather or whatever that is.
Exactly.
So, Jon, can we pre-order this now?
You can. If you go to soundtracksbook.com. So if you pre-order it, the best thing, I mean, there's a bunch of good bonuses, but I think the best thing is we'll give you the entire audiobook for free. And I read the audiobook. There's a ton of bonus content.
Bonuses. You'll mow their lawn.
Bonuses all over. I mean, I'm a writer, so let's not pretend I'm amazing at like manual labor stuff.
Okay.
Like if you were like, Jon, we want you to fix our car, I'd be like, boy, you must hate your car. Like I'll describe it. Adjectives I'm amazing at. But yeah, if you go to soundtracksbook.com and pre-order before April 5th, free audiobook, entire audiobook, you get an autographed book plate. I'm signing thousands and thousands and thousands of these. It's a little record. It's cute. You can put it on your book. You also get a bonus chapter and you get the first lesson in the Soundtracks course. We did an amazing video course. So yeah, we're trying to really encourage people to go, okay, either you overthink or you probably are married to somebody who overthinks. So there's going to be somebody that needs this book in your life. And I think you'll love it.
Right. So don't stop and wonder and consider whether you should go to soundtracksbook.com or not. Just do it now. Get this done. Jon, thank you for being with us. I appreciate it. We'll have everything in the show notes and we'll send you everything. We want to get this to as many people as we can. I really appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Andy.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer. Harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing that tiny bit of mental energy I have for you. Seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk. Even behind that mask, yes. Don't breathe anybody else's air. Not time to do that yet, but make sure you have a positive answer to the question, how's it going? And so, until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Battering rams provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by Sleep Ticks. Are you struggling with songs that won't leave your head? Do your friends not like you anymore because you won't stop singing the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald? Try Sleep Ticks. the sleeping solution that makes you forget everything, including that annoying tune. It really works. Sleep Ticks is a mind-scrubbing solution that erases all memory, allowing you the freedom to get a new song stuck in your head the very next day. Just clear your calendar and throw one of these tiny blue pills back with a glass of water and let Sleep Ticks clear everything else. Feel free to use Sleep Ticks on friends and family as well. If they are the person who won't stop chanting, "Who let the dogs out?" simply offer them a Sleep Ticks, and the annoying song will be a thing of the past. Don't take our word for it, though. Listen to these testimonials. Bill from Seattle says, "I sang Don't Stop Believin' by Journey for 17 days and was driving my wife insane. She gave me a Sleep Ticks. I took it and woke up sometime later in a ditch holding a bag of burritos from Taco Bell. But by golly, that song was gone." Linda from Little Rock says, "When I first heard about Sleep Ticks, I was skeptical, but I suppose it really works. I was told I was arrested for repeating the lyric, 'Whoop, there it is,' until my boyfriend jumped off a bridge. It must be true. I'm in jail now and don't remember what I was whooping about or where it was. Isn't that great?" Davis from Atlanta says, "I've never trusted drugs you can buy online, but this time I figured, what the heck, I'll give it a shot. I was desperate. My wife had left me because I had the Commodores stuck on a loop in my brain. Evidently, her sorority reunion was ruined because the night I met all her old friends, I repeated the line, 'She's a brick house,' over and over. Now, thanks to Sleep Ticks, I don't even remember what my wife looked like. So, friends, get your Sleep Ticks today. It's trusted by tens of people around the country. Side effects can include impaired judgment, hallucinations, and uncontrollable urges to gamble. Talk to your doctor today to see if Sleep Ticks is right for you. Sleep Ticks should never be used while driving, consuming alcohol, or visiting Bill Cosby in prison."